Good evening, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Mental Health and Resilience series. My name is Toyemi Okwoluwa Calebs, and I'm the coordinator of strategic initiatives here at Empowerment Squared, and I'm one of the co-hosts for tonight's discussion. And with me in the studio today is...
Hello, everyone. My name is Rose Sennett. I am the coordinator of educational programming. And tonight joining us is Eve Mpofu, hopefully I got that right, and Alex Batik. Eve is a mental wellness practitioner at Refuge Hamilton Center for Newcomers Wealth, who is also our collaborator partner for this mental health initiative. And Refuge also provides mental health services to newcomers and immigrants. So Eve, if you would like to introduce yourself tonight, tell us a little bit about yourself. Go ahead.
Hi everybody. Thank you for having me today. My name is Eve Mpofu. I'm a qualifying registered psychotherapist and also a mental wellness practitioner. So I practice therapeutic counseling as well as research-based work regarding clinical counseling. I've done work in different communities in Nunavut with youth and adults, as well as locally in Hamilton and Kitchener, providing therapeutic counseling with a wide demographic, including ACPI folks. And I'm currently working at Refuge, as you said, and they provide primary health care to Hamilton's new immigrants and refugee populations.
All right, thank you very much for that, Eve. And our other guest speaker for tonight is Alex Batik. Alex, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, my name is Alex Batik. I am the Hamilton Education Law Program Coordinator at Empowerment Squared. Excited to kind of have a mashup of important conversations from Eve's specialty and mine with education law. So it's going to be a very interesting discussion as we figure out how those two really intersect. So thank you for having me.
Oh, thank you very much, Alex. And Rose and I are truly excited for tonight's discussion. So we're just going to jump right in. And the topic, as we all know, is youth mental health. And the first question we have is, why do we think youth mental health needs to be addressed separately from mental health in general? Eve, you can start, and then Alex can speak as well.
Okay, well, I think youth mental health is very important to look at separately because socially, youth are focused on their phones and social media, and they're constantly bombarded with this idea that they're supposed to be perfect, which kind of negatively impacts their mental health, and anybody's really, like we're all affected by social media and the mental health effects. And what's worse is that these messages are typically subliminal, so the youth don't even know what's happening. They see a certain image and they see a certain body type, for example, and then they think that that's what's supposed to be the ideal body type and that's what perfection is. And then if they don't fit into that category, the lie that social media tells them makes them feel like they're not good enough. So I think social media is a big impact of youth mental health.
That's a very good point, Eve. And Alex, do you have anything to add as well?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, it's incredibly important in the context of learning, I think. How do we understand the individual impacts of negative mental health on individual learning, and how can schools support that when it comes to things like trauma or anxiety and other forms of mental health that might impact how one learns.
Eve, you mentioned that sometimes that the kids might not be aware that this is happening to them. And this is goes right perfectly into the second question is sometimes youth might not be aware that they're going through a mental health challenge or trauma. So is there any signs that they could look for that kind of shows them or let them know that they're facing a mental health challenge?
Yeah, for sure. So I think first of all, it's important to say that mental health is on a spectrum from well to unwell. And it's normal for everyone to have good days and bad days and moments of sadness or anxiety. The issue then becomes when you're more on the unwell side of things, more days than not. So if you start to feel like you're isolating yourself from your friends and your family, and you start to feel like you want to be alone all the time, that could be an issue. And if you start to have internal dialogue that tells you that you're not good enough, like an internal voice that's constantly putting you down. And when I say internal voice, it doesn't always sound like somebody's voice or your voice in your head. It could be like different thoughts that you're having. And also when you're struggling to do things that you used to like doing, for example, like if you used to like going on walks and it just becomes so hard and overwhelming for you to do that. I'm just gonna mention some of the things that are typical when somebody's, going on the unwell side. So sometimes kids have appetite changes. So having a dramatic appetite change, either eating too much or eating a lot less than you used to, and it's just not normal for you. Having mood changes, so having drastic or dramatic shifts of emotions, where one minute you're really, really happy and the other minute you're really depressed, and there's no reason or cause for it. Sometimes also there's problems with your thinking patterns. So problems with concentrating and remembering things and having to talk in a way that doesn't fully make sense and you can't really explain it. And it's different for you. Like it's not your personality to do that. Increased sensitivity is another big one, sorry. So if you suddenly start to have like heightened sensitivity to sight or sounds or smell or anything that's around you in terms of like touch or different things like that. And loss of initiative or desire to participate in any activity that you used to enjoy before. Feeling disconnected. If you're a youth and you used to be connected to your friends and then you suddenly start to feel like you're all alone, you're feeling disconnected and you can't even connect to yourself. So you feel like you're starting to live like you're in a dream. That could be a reason for concern as well. Another one, which is a little bit more on the intense side, is if you start to have unusual or exaggerated beliefs about what you can do. So like if you think you have personal powers that are more than the regular person, it's something to kind of look at and see how logical it is. It may be good to talk to your parents or your friends to see like if it makes sense to everybody.
So this also ties into our next question. So for parents, what can they actually do to identify if their children are facing these mental health challenges? And as well, what tips do you have for parents to support their children?
Okay, so there are different reasons why parents may be unaware of mental health challenges that their kids are facing. One of those reasons may simply just be a lack of knowledge or information about mental health in general. So first of all, I would encourage parents and youth alike to learn about mental health and what it means to be on that spectrum of well and unwell. Some people call it healthy and unhealthy mentally. So the truth is that we all suffer from mental health to some capacity. We all have good days and bad days. And I think parents need to know and understand their children's patterns. So some things to look at are like grades if they drastically change, school attendance if your child starts to miss a lot more school, a lot more classes, and there's no reason for this. And maybe if your child doesn't want to hang out with their siblings anymore and they used to enjoy doing this and they're isolating themselves, it's the same point as the youth when they start to notice what's affecting them. And for parents too, I don't think it's enough to think that you and your child are close and they know that they can talk to you if they're not feeling well. I think it's important to understand that sometimes these emotions that youth are experiencing don't have words. Sometimes it's hard to talk to a parent because youth are worried that, mom and dad are really stressed and I don't want to put more stress on them. I don't want them to worry about me. So then that becomes difficult to go to a parent and talk to them. And just a few tips in keeping the conversation going is to have a daily or weekly routine with your child. So you could do daily 30 minutes to an hour where you shut off all devices, computers, phones, TV, and sit together and just talk. Ask about in-depth questions to normalize just talking to your kids about difficult topics. So it may be hard at the beginning, and your kids may not want to open up, especially if this is a new thing, which is okay. Like, it's important to not take this personally as a parent, and not to get angry if you feel like you're trying and your kid is not coming along, they don't want to open up to you. It's good to just kind of relax and just keep trying. You can also do different activities with them while you're in conversations, because sometimes it's easier than just sitting and talking. So you could go for a walk, get out of the house, an opportunity to just exercise, get some fresh air, and talk to your child when you're doing that. You could do chores with them, encourage them to do chores, and just encourage them to get out of bed, out of their rooms, doing something that they can feel that they've accomplished for the day and they feel good about. I also think it's important to make sure that you know their friends and ask about their friends. Ask about how their friends are doing, and foster the relationship with your kid that it makes them comfortable, that they can come to talk to you about issues with their friends. And what kind of leads up to that is knowing how their friends are doing and asking, how is Thomas doing? Is it still applying for school, and specific things like that. The last thing I would say is that it's important not to compare your childhood with your children's childhoods, just because of this whole social media impact, and lifestyles today are very, very different than they were even 20 years ago.
Many immigrants face a number of challenges in moving to Canada. How can youth be better integrated into the Canadian system? What is the role of the education system in providing the support need for our youth? This is kind of education, so Alex, if you would like to go first and answer this question, that would be great.
So the role in supporting students for those who come from a different country, I don't think it would differ too greatly from the role that schools should be playing in every student's lives. Their primary objectives is to ensure the well-being of all students in the school, to make them feel safe and protected in a safe environment. So that's a really broad kind of net, but it really has a lot that you can advocate for. When it comes to well-being, we know that there is the aspect of mental health and well-being. So what are some of the duties and obligations of schools in that regard? You might not be able to necessarily find it written in any policy or any legislation, but you can read between the lines, and protecting a student should also mean protecting their mental well-being in school, whether or not that means preventing them from bullying or any other forms of things that could impact them mentally coming from school. Outside of school, the obligation of schools to protect students from things outside of the school jurisdiction is a little bit more unclear. Things that have an impact on the climate of the school, which in turn could have an impact on the mental health and well-being of a student. Again, like bullying, for example, or things on social media might fall within the jurisdiction of a school to deal with, but it does become a little bit more unclear. If we're talking about things more of like a social or global importance or significance, and I'm pretty sure we're going to get into it, for example, like COVID-19 and the impact of traumas that affect students, arguably the school would have a role in playing. And I'll let you ask me the questions before I continue to answer.
Eve, would you like to take a stab at this question?
Yeah, I definitely agree with what Alex said. I think one of the most important things for youth and their families when they first immigrate here is to join groups that will be consistent in their youth's lives. So joining faith-based communities, finding and attending community events, whether it's religious-based or culturally based, finding ways to connect with people from similar culture and backgrounds, and attending events so that your kids can meet other kids that have been here for a different length of time that they can talk to and connect with on a personal level. When it comes to the education system, I think it's this is kind of your area, Alex, but I think it just gives youth a routine, which is essential in managing mental health. So having a routines for kids is really, really important in letting them know what's coming, what to expect. It kind of decreases anxiety and makes day to day like better to manage. It's also important to find ways that they can be involved in, let's say, sports teams or different clubs that are offered at the school, and it provides a sense of belonging for them. And I think typically with immigration, families lack routine, and this is just due to the nature of traveling and journeying and finding a new home. And
Very true.
the education system, first of all, provides a space where you can gain that structure that's needed, a space to socialize and meet new people, meet new friends, new leaders, and gaining the structure that makes them feel like they belong.
Okay. You both mentioned key points in response to the question. Alex mentioned the role of the advocate, and Evie also mentioned the importance of having for families to key into faith-based or community organizations, and also having a routine so that the kids are better transitioned into the Canadian education system. While Alex, you also mentioned some of the things that students might face while in schools, which like bullying, which actually ties it into our next question, because we know that young people, in addition to the immigration trauma that they face, they may also face trauma while in school. So we'd like you to, and we've thrown the word trauma a few times in this conversation, so we can define what trauma means in this context, and also discuss what type of trauma young people face in school and how it also impacts their mental health.
Sorry, was
Okay,
that
Alex,
directed to me?
this for you? Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
sure,
sorry.
yeah. So trauma, the idea of trauma and how it impacts students is, from my understanding, and I am more of a lawyer and less of a person who deals in this realm, but when students are facing stress and difficult life circumstances, it can affect three areas, maybe more, but this is my understanding. The first is a sense of safety, then a feeling of connectedness and feelings of hope. So trauma may have a direct impact in those three things, and the way it manifests in students can be through being unable to effectively deal with work, perhaps being able to manage behavior in class, many different ways it can manifest. But the idea of trauma itself and impacting students is a concern because it speaks to some of the vulnerabilities that students may be facing. These concerns can be raised as a result of danger, safety, and the need for protection. For some, this danger is added to pre-existing traumas and adversity and disparities in socioeconomic life and circumstances. So it's very broad in which individuals can experience different traumas and how it manifests. Right now, we're going through a community, global kind of event. And for many people, it only has compounded things that have been going on in their lives. So it's an interesting but unfortunate circumstance that many students find themselves in, where they continue to not feel a sense of safety. There's a loss of connectedness, especially when we think about those who haven't been able to attend school. And then this feeling of hopelessness, this idea of when will it all end? And this can all work together to create an unhealthy layer of mental health, or if we're looking at, as Eve indicated, this spectrum, it might be closer to the unhealthy side, given these three different things happening at the same time. A sense of not having safety, connectedness, and hopelessness, like I mentioned. So it's a very interesting time for students. And yeah, I'd love to hear what Eve might have to add to that as well.
Yeah, no, I think you
Heidi?
hit the nail on the head with that one. Especially right now, it's a very anxiety risen time in terms of COVID-19 and having our masks on, not being able to fully communicate in a way that's personable. So I think like what you said is very accurate.
Switching gears a bit, and Alex has already been like preluding to it, to the current pandemic that is facing all of us. And the question is, has COVID-19 been a traumatic event for students? And if the answer is yes, which we know it is, like what are the effects on students based on like just being a student, learning, any academic goals? So Alex, you can start, and then Eve can answer as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think one of the, and I say interesting from an academic point, but it's unfortunate circumstances. There are different kind of ways in which students have been affected by COVID-19. I kind of mentioned it before, but for some, it only adds to pre-existing traumas and adversities and disparities. So from students from many disenfranchised communities, marginalized backgrounds, this is only compounding a lot of the struggles that they may have known. But alternatively, some students, this pandemic has only just brought about new grief, new loss, new trauma, which may include increased risk for violence and abuse in the home, for example, or risk to family members. It's really introducing a lot of kids to what trauma is, and kids who may not otherwise have known it had this event not occurred. So it's a very interesting time because a lot of students may be going through a lot right now, and it's more difficult, I can imagine, for schools to play a role, given that there's this idea of social distancing. Whether or not you're going to school right now might have an impact on that. The sense of safety, like I said, when some people may be more exposed to a risk of violence from abuse in the home, but also this idea of safety also comes in the form of economic safety. How are some families financially dealing with this pandemic right now, and how does that impact the home life for students? So safety is a big issue. And then it just goes back to this idea of hopelessness. Many families will experience secondary adversities related to their isolation. So I mentioned the economic hardships, but also the unmet basic needs. And it's just the unknown of how long this will go on for. So COVID-19 has really been an impact for many students, and it might not always be easy to identify what that is to a lot of students, but it certainly is there.
Yeah. And Eve, do you have anything else to add?
Yeah, I absolutely agree with what Alex said, and he hit a lot of the main points about how traumatic it really has been for students. There's just a lot of uncertainty in our world, and there has been this last few months. There's a lot of misinformation and a lot of unrest politically and socially, and there's a lot of things that are really not known about the virus, which in itself creates anxiety, heightened anxiety. And there are also reports, like what Alex said, that domestic violence and abuse has gone up during the lockdown. And people are stressed, families are struggling financially, and I wonder what these kids have experienced and seen while being stuck at home that they probably wouldn't have if they were at school or at their friends' places or just out in the community, at the mall, at the library, just somewhere else other than home. There's also anxiety about getting sick, and it's unknown like what exactly symptoms you would experience if you personally get COVID-19, and like you have to get tested to fully know if you do have it or not. And this is also the first time in young people's history that we haven't been able to see one another when communicating. With the mask on, like I was talking about, it's hard to have that human to human connection. So when you're communicating with somebody, you don't feel at ease all the time. It's impossible when you can't see facial features and what the person is saying with their body language, with their face. So anxiety is at an all-time high, which in itself creates trauma in the long term.
Okay.
Do you guys, health resources, community organization, and crisis lines available to youth to access right now?
I think the first thing is that if you have a family doctor, it would be important to first of all ask if they have counseling support at their office, and if they do referrals to different places, and that's just how that process is with your family doctor. If you're feeling like you're depressed or anxious, go to your family doctor and ask for an assessment. They'll do this, but sometimes you have to ask for it. If they can't do it, ask for them to refer you to somebody who can, just so you know what's going on within yourself. I know Good Shepherd also in Hamilton offers youth services and that are therapeutic services, and I believe they have different groups. It would be good to kind of look up Good Shepherd Youth Services for that. Another one is Hamilton and District Extended Family. They offer different social and recreational opportunities for children and youth that have special needs. I think they deal with particularly special needs. So if you have a child that has special needs, it'll be good to look into Extended Family. Another one is Coast. They have a crisis line. I can just give the number now so people can take it down. It's 905-972-8338. And you can talk to somebody, even if you want to call on behalf of somebody, your friend who's not doing well, you can call them and ask for best ways that you can assist your friend or best ways you can assist yourself. Just tell them what's going on and see what they have to offer. This is not an extensive list, but I can send you guys to post on Facebook if that's okay.
Please do. And I also know the Space, which is a youth center. They have some great social workers there. So if any youth, it's just right downtown by the bus terminal. Yeah. So if that is youth center, youth ran. So if any youth was kind of not sure about going into an adult or their family doctor, they could always stop there. They're open, and they're very opening. So they could definitely help.
That's a good one.
Okay. And Eve,
One of my friends confided in me, is that correct English? I think so. In me, that they are suicidal and they have been self-harming for months. I do not think anyone else knows this, and I do not know how I can help. What do I do?
I think it's important, first of all, that they did confide in you about this. And usually when people tell you such a deep secret, it's because they're ready to receive help. They're taking their steps in looking for help in whatever way that they can. I think it would be important to talk to your friend about maybe telling somebody who would be better able to deal with such heavy information and that kind of topic. And even if your friend is open to having you come with them to talk to somebody like a counselor or somebody who specializes in mental health, if they need that kind of support, and just for you to be even in the room when they're talking about this, I think is incredible support for somebody. It would be good to look online and just see what services are online in terms of helping with self-injury and different traumatic events like that.
Is there any...
thank you very much, Alex and Eve, for those final words. I definitely have learned a lot about your mental health and just ways for us to stay healthy and cope better in this current climate. What about you, Rose?
Definitely learn a few stuff. I really hope most likely the parents are really taking this in and checking in on their kids. So that's the biggest thing I hope parents get from this. Thank you, guys.
All right, so we've come to the end of today's show. So we'd just like to thank our two speakers, Alex and Eve, for taking the time this evening to join us and speak a lot about youth mental health, student trauma, and parenting. Also want to thank you, the viewers, for also tuning in, watching, us sending in your questions. We really, truly appreciate it. Next week, same time, same place, we'll be discussing the intersection between religion and mental health. So you can also tune in.
Unfortunately, I won't be here.
But we'll also have some exciting people also for you to listen to. So, and also if you want to watch past episodes on this series, they're all uploaded onto our YouTube channel. So if you search Empowerment Squared on YouTube, you'll be able to watch the previous episodes that we've discussed. So this this is from us saying thank you for watching tonight and have a good evening.
Goodbye.
Thank you.